You're listening to the Artist King podcast.
This is DTM of DeltaTangoMike.com, and this is the Artist King Podcast, episode 64. This week's interview is with talented artist, animator, and graphic designer, Carrie Hawks. Having worked for Oxygen Media, Wired Magazine, and now with Jazeera America, Carrie has put in the hours to refine the natural talent that she recognized at an early age. Check out more of Carrie's work online, and check out her upcoming documentary, Black Enuf. Every month, Artist King will be giving away a 1-hour consultation with an art business mentor and a business coach at Azalea Creative in Inman Park. To be eligible, artists must be an Artist King email subscriber. Visit www.artistking.org and subscribe now to get a chance to be one of those artists, plus receive updates on upcoming events, classes, meetups, workshops, and resources available to artists of all levels. The Artist King podcast is made possible by general sponsors: the law offices of Deborah Gonzalez Esquire, VelocityScreenPrint.net, RevolveSkate.com, OHub at Giant, SouthSide Sickest, Mex Manny Beats, the Biz Garage, SuperNova South, OnyxCon.com, and also be on the lookout for reduced rates on websites for artists by DenominatorGraphics.com and Lucam.com. Check out theartistking.org for details. Please take a moment to find the Artist King podcast and rate our program on your favorite platform. We are on iTunes, Spreaker.com, Stitcher Radio, and ArtistKingArchive.com. It is important that we hear from you and get your feedback and ideas. Artist King is yours, and we want you to benefit from the information shared here every week. Now on to our interview with Carrie Hawks.
My name is Carrie Hawks, and I'm from Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City. Tell us about growing up in Kansas City.
Well, it's kind of boring, but I was originally born in Michigan, but my family moved around a bit, and then my grandparents were living in Kansas City, so my family settled down in Kansas City. And I stayed there till I was 18, and then I got out for school.
Okay. And growing up, did you? When's the first time you came across art? Do you remember? And do you remember what kind of art that was and who introduced you to it?
I don't really. Well, actually, it's hard to remember the first memory, but I do know that my grandmother on my dad's side was an artist, so she used to mail us like homemade birthday cards, or she'd make us dolls or stuff like that. So I always remember seeing that stuff from her and hearing that she was an artist. And then I've been drawing as long as I can remember, too. So.
And so the cards were homemade cards for birthdays and little things like that?
Yeah, or like homemade dolls. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I got from Grandma.
And what was some of the stuff that you started to draw?
I remember once I was drawing, it was probably like second or third grade, we had to make some trees. And you made them out of cut paper, and I just kept cutting and cutting because I wanted to have like a billion branches on the trees, and the paper was getting really thin. But yeah, I always loved art class. I always wanted to make stuff.
And so, did you take any art classes in middle school or high school?
In middle school, I know we had art. I don't remember if it was an elective or like everyone took it, but. I would draw outside of school, but I remember we did some sculptures in there, like wood sculptures, wood and wire, and then we did some drawing, and then, in grade school too, I took art, and I was in art club, and then in high school I took a couple other drawing classes, and even though I didn't take that many, the teacher was encouraging me to keep drawing on my own and to draw stuff from real life.
Yeah, so you were encouraged, and Did you ever think that at any time that's all you wanted to do with your life, or you wanted to be an astronaut and drawing was just something that you did on the side, art stuff?
Well, actually, I got into poetry a lot in high school, so I won like a poetry award, and I worked on our poet magazine. And so when I was starting to get to college, I thought I would continue that route. But I'd always been drawing, and then I started taking art classes, and I just that just won me over.
Yeah. And as you got older, what kind of stuff did you like drawing? Because I remember seeing your art in the early 2000s, and you had that I'm trying to remember the name of that director of the Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were on that wavelength and stuff, and so is that something that you like drawing a lot or working with art? And you did a lot of like arts and crafts type of art.
Yeah.
So
I like making. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, that was my prompt for you to go on. Tell us more.
Well, I do like making things with my hands. I remember when I was a kid, I didn't draw that much from real life. I remember drawing stuff from magazines like Janet Jackson and stuff. And then when they suggested I draw more stuff from real life, I would draw just what was outside my window. I'd draw my dolls. I also like sewing, so I'd alter dresses or sew those. And then I had an art show, I think, when I was living in Atlanta, where I had all these little watercolor drawings I did, and then I covered the walls with material, and I sewed the paintings into the walls. I made some dolls. This guy gave me his locks, he cut off his locks, and then I made dolls out of the locks, and I dyed them and bleached them until they had different skin tones. Yeah, I always kind of like dark sense of humor, I guess. So Tim Burton was a big influence, Nightmare Before Christmas, Edward Gorey, black and white things a lot. I like to draw those little creepy things.
So when you were finishing up high school and you thought about college, did you have an idea you was going to do art? Were you going to art school? What was the decision like, and what did you do?
Well, I kind of just wanted to get really far away from home, so that was one factor.
That was one factor.
Yeah, there are a lot of great things in Kansas City, but I wanted to travel. I wanted to see something else. So I applied to a few different schools, and I visited the one I ended up going to in New York. They flew people up for a multicultural weekend, and I just really liked it up there. And there's so much art to see in New York, with all the museums and exhibits and stuff happening all the time. So I figured if I didn't go then, when I was going to have a community of support through the college, then I probably would never go. So I was thinking more about literature and poetry at the time, but I was really happy to come to New York because there's so much to see. I was also really into Frida Kahlo in high school. I took a lot of Spanish classes, and one of our teachers introduced us to her work. And so when I came to New York, I went to the MoMA and I saw a Frida Kahlo painting for the first time, and I was just I don't know if I cried or not, but I remember just standing there for a while just because I was so impressed that I got to be in the same room with one of her paintings. And I really liked her work a lot. So
nice. So the focus in college was the art, and did you get a art degree, or did you finish?
Well, I went to college twice. So the first time I went, and my school didn't have just straight up visual art, so you had to do art history with visual art concentration. And I took a printmaking class, not really knowing much about it. We did stone lithography, so I ended up doing an art history with a concentration in visual arts, mostly taking a lot of printmaking classes.
And at that time, what did you think you was going to do with your art career, or were you going to have one?
I didn't really know. I remember meeting with my advisor, and she just kept saying, a liberal arts degree, you can do anything with it. You can work in a bank, you can blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, I don't want to work in a bank. But I didn't really know. I thought maybe if I continued, I could teach art or, I don't know, sell art or something. But I didn't quite have it worked out what I wanted to do, but I knew that I loved it, so I just kept doing it. And then after I graduated the first time, I ended up doing the JET program, so I taught English in Japan. that kind of gave me time to not figure out what the rest of my plan was going to be. Yeah, and I'd always really liked Japanese printmaking, like from the Edo period in the 1800s. So I was excited. I went over there and I ended up taking a woodblock printing class, and I was the only person in the class, so it was just me and this Japanese guy, and like he didn't speak much English, and I didn't speak much Japanese, so we just like drew and carved wood and printed, and we couldn't really talk much, but we basically were just like talking through art, so that was really cool.
Dang, that's cool.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, you look at the line and you'd be like, line. I'm like, yeah, line, and I'd learned like a little words here and there, but like we ended up. I mean, I think the class was like 4 or 5 weeks, an hour or two a class, and it was great because I got to study Japanese printmaking with a Japanese printmaker. Like that was a life dream, really. So it was pretty cool.
Wow. It's amazing though that it's not about the language,
No.
The art is the language. Art is the medium in which you speak. That's crazy. That's cool. That's really cool. So all this time you've been going to school, you've done arts and stuff, and did you have a job? You had to have jobs or so on, right? Because were you finding ways to make money with your art?
Well, when I was in Japan, I was teaching English, so that's how I was making a living. And then when I came back to the States, I had no idea what to do. But I knew I didn't want to be in Missouri anymore, and I didn't like cold weather, so I just bought a car and moved to Atlanta because I figured like it's warm and there's cool black people there, so I just went.
That's those are good qualities of a city.
That's all I really needed. That decent spoken word scene. They had art. They had music. Like they didn't have so much snow. So I went down there. I found a place to live, and I ended up working in a library actually for Emory at Emory's library.
Yeah.
The nice thing about working for the university was I was allowed to take classes for free, so I took a sculpture class while I was there, and then I decided while I was there that I would go back to school for graphic design because I wanted to. I thought about being a librarian, but I remember I talked to a bunch of librarians, and then I'd start to get distracted by the posters on the wall of like, those like posters that encourage reading, and so they'd have all these books and drawings on them, and I was like, man, I'd rather be doing that than being a librarian. So I hadn't really thought about graphic design because by this point I had shown a little bit of art, but I had not really sold enough of it where I thought I could support myself off of it. But then when I heard about graphic design, it's like art that people are asking for. So I was like, oh, if they're going to pay me and I can be creative, then I went back to school at Georgia State, and I went to the graphic design program, and then started working in graphic design. I think even while I was there, I did a couple freelance projects, so it was kind of like, oh, this could be a thing. So I did it, and I was really happy I did it because it married some of the art history I learned through history of typography and history of graphic design, and then you also get to play with color and you can make stuff in graphic design. It doesn't all have to be on the computer. So I had a lot of fun mixing computer and sculpture or photograph or sewing or anything I could think of and putting that in the design.
So did you find a job right out of college, or were you more on the dependent on the freelance, and that's what the route you wanted to go?
Well, let's see. Right after I was still working at the library when I graduated. I had to do a couple internships while I was there. So I did one at Cartoon Network, which was really fun. I got to work on their website, and then I did one with this woman who she owns her own company. She does a lot of music packaging, World of Anarchy. So I helped her with a lot of. She does more historical music, so it's a Grammy-winning package designer, which I hadn't really heard about package design before I started studying graphic design. So I worked some with her